Hello. We need what's our music play when this comes in? I mean, can the hello already be part of our music?
I can't even remember what our music is. I just
It's
edit it
pretty
once a week. I can't remember.
pretty jazzy. It's pretty
It
jazzy,
is.
but
I know it's. Yeah, I can't remember now. But yeah, we could work
well,
something out. I could do some editing. Yeah.
I mean, it's the association transformation kind of sign in, and it'd be nice if it was,
Do you know, I've
part of
been
the
thinking about
accompaniment.
this actually. I've been thinking about this. I think I'd like to do it now and again. You always do it
Really?
for 100 plus episodes. And I listened to the first episode the other day, and I realized it was me doing it to begin with.
Oh, okay, okay. Hey,
And
this is a collaboration. This is a
yeah,
partnership. This is an
yeah.
ongoing, evolving thing. Whatever.
So the
Have the
next
fans
one,
asked
the
for this?
next, hey,
Have the listeners asked for this?
yeah.
Oh, they have. They want to hear
Yeah.
you do.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I get. Do you know
Not
the
your
amount of
mom, not your mom, but
the
the
amount of
listeners.
fan mail I get? Why did you not start it, Andrew? Why do you not start? I'm like, I just, I just ride with it, me, easy Aussie. But actually, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
here you go. This is you. Let's hear it
Oh
go.
no, not now. Next
Oh,
episode. We've already started now, so we're gonna do
okay.
it.
Well, hello. Elisa Pratt, Brewer Pratt Solutions here. Welcome to Association Transformation. What episode are we? 134, 135,
Ooh. Uh,
199? I don't know.
135, maybe 34, 34,
Okay. Okay. Gosh,
35.
that's still astounding to me. I mean,
Well, we're
pretty
fast
awesome.
approaching 150, so we're going to do. I think 150 is in June. I think I worked it out. We're going to be 150 in June. So,
Yeah, and we have a celebrity guest for that already planned.
oh my God, that's
Very,
exciting! Yeah,
very exciting. Let's lower and manage expectations though.
yeah.
I know we're association nerds and our audience are association nerds. Let's keep that under control. I'm
Okay.
such a nerd. I'm such a nerd that I had a dream about. Maybe you can construe it as a nightmare, but I had a nightmare about Robert's rules last night.
Now, I, for somebody who, when we first started this, you were like, "Huh, governance." Huh.
I know
And
this
now,
is
now you're dreaming about Robert's rules. And actually, it's really interesting for our non-US listeners. I think we need to tell people what Robert's rules is because Robert's rules is a distinctly US concept.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that it was such
Well,
a
it's
singular
the
country
rules. The
focus.
rules as a concept
Who's
are
Robert?
universal, but yeah, Robert's rules. Mr. Roberts. I don't even know if his first or second name was Robert, but
Okay.
yeah, I reckon that term and that book, which is a
I keep it right
monster.
here on my desk.
Tell people what it is because I
I'm
don't
just
even have a
kidding.
copy.
It's not. It's not.
Go on, but tell people what Rob.
That's actually Civil Disobedience by Robert Thoreau, or by Henry David Thoreau.
Well, quite frankly, sometimes when I talk about governance for some boards, civil disobedience feels like what we're talking about. But briefly, just tell us what Robert's rules are.
The rules of engagement for a board of directors or a governance entity
Hmm.
as to the steps and process, and in some ways, even the verbiage used to move through the business of governing.
There you
So
go.
every
Yeah.
is that generic and encompassing enough?
And as I say, those principles of how to do it are universal. But
Yep.
when it's spoken about, only in the US have I heard people discuss it as Robert's rules because it is captured in a monstrous encyclopedia, in my opinion, I mean, to the
Yeah.
nth degree. I've never seen governance detailed like it. I mean, it's brilliant.
Well, and
Don't get me
that was my
wrong.
nightmare. That was my nightmare. And I think why initially so many of us are turned off from governance because
Mm,
it is such a minute, granular, paralyzing, punitive document and process. And I don't know, I will say that was my nightmare. I think I was at like the Little League or PTA board meeting, and it was just a Robert's Rules
yes, because I
show
think
of
I think that's the other piece around it is it's applied in every and any non-profit context. It doesn't matter what size your organization. It could just be like you say, it could just be the little league baseball team, moms and pops having a chat, and they've got this monster of how to conduct
yeah.
our meetings. It's
And so
it's overwhelming.
it no longer becomes about our mission or what we're trying to accomplish.
No.
It becomes about the process and the procedure. which then people who want to either grind things to a screeching halt can weaponize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember the full details of my dream, but it was basically that.
Well, I think we should just I think well, thanks for sharing that on the
I'm
podcast. I think we
Yeah, I need a
all
little therapy. I need a little therapy sometime. It can't always be about you and your RFPs and your clients. So I need a little therapy sometime.
why are you triggering me? Why are you triggering me with the RFP piece? So go on. So we're recording this. Actually, we're recording this on a Sunday morning in
We
America,
are.
Sunday afternoon in the UK,
We
and
are.
so you're just recovering from that nightmare, and you felt, you know what, we need to record a pod about
I called
this.
you immediately. I shot up the association transformation bat signal and you responded and we hopped on a pod and it's
So
interesting oh go ahead.
well, I was going to say, so when nightmares, they're always we all know they're just dreams, are just thoughts about something else that's happening, in the real
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So what is it? Go on, what is it? Let's get into it. What is it that's triggering you to have dreams about governance?
I know it's so weird. So it's such a sad state. Well, I'm working with a couple boards now in different capacities, and there are some who have lost touch with their purpose and instead are focused on procedure. I also am struggling with a couple clients, and this is, over time, this has been back when I was a staff person, just the confidentiality of the board and people keeping
Mm,
that business, keeping what needs to happen within those doors.
yeah,
The Chatham House. Well, that's British or UK. I mean, we
it
don't we
is.
don't have we don't have a run on all the robust rules, do we? Isn't if we have Roberts, what do you have?
Yeah, we don't have. We have Chatham House. That's our contribution to the governance nightmare. Actually, no. Do you know what? Chatham House is an incredibly important rule, and actually,
All
it's
right,
one.
give me pause it, give it the background, tell everyone what that is.
Okay, well, so sometimes you'll have a business meeting or a particular section of a meeting, and you'll hear people say, "Well, this is now going to be conducted under the Chatham House rule." So
Okay.
that implies. So the implication is when you say that, you
When you
the when you say we're going to have Chatham House rules, or you invite someone to a meeting, you can say, "Oh, come to a meeting. It's going to be Chatham House rules."
mhm,
So what that is that what that tells me is that members of the meeting, they can use the information that's shared to some extent, right? So you'll be in receipt of some. You'll have a chat, you'll have a conversation, maybe got papers in front of you. You can use it if the information isn't highly commercially confidential or sensitive, etc. But
yeah.
nobody who has been in that meeting is allowed to identify the speakers or the participants in that meeting. So,
Oh, maybe I've misunderstood it over time. I thought that not only who spoke what, but the what was also,
yeah,
embargoed. I didn't know it was just who said what. I thought it was actually the content and the discussion itself was embargoed.
no, well, and I think it's a common misunderstanding. So the rule itself reads, and I'm quoting verbatim here: when a meeting or part thereof is held under the Chatham House rule, participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers, nor that of any participant may be revealed. So,
Oh God,
yeah,
that's dangerous because the what's not defined is may use.
well,
When,
exactly.
where, yeah, I don't like that. I thought that Chatham House gave you much more protections than that. I
No,
was
it,
I
it
was
it simply gives you the protection of anonymity of the participants, freedom of speech,
Interesting.
open and frank discussions. Now there are
Yeah.
restrictions. No, don't get me wrong. The route, so even if everyone is staying true to the anonymity rule, some topics,
Yeah.
obviously, sometimes it depends on if who's in the meeting. You can attribute some of the material to certain people in the rule. Sorry, you can attribute some of the material to certain participants who are in the room.
Yeah.
So sometimes then parts of the meeting, part of a Chatham House rules meeting, will
Mhm.
then be used under the term off minutes. And so that's when you have a fully confidential, open and
Yeah.
frank, honest conversation. And those off minutes conversation, they are they are absolutely confidential.
Okay.
And I think part of that is because confidentiality can be so or a lack of confidentiality can be so
Yes.
destabilizing to conversations that any group are
Yeah.
having, particularly in a governance context. So and just as a complete aside, so you want to understand, so you know where the Chatham House
Yeah. Oh, this is a real
comes
place,
from.
right?
Yeah, it was, so the
It's
rule was
not just
created.
Chatham Tanning's house.
It's not actually, surprisingly. It's not. So the rule was created in 1927 and it's named after the headquarters of the Royal Institute of International Affairs,
Ooh.
which was established in 1920, just after the First World War. And its headquarters is Chatham House, which is an 18th century listed building in St. James Square in London.
Oh, let's go there.
Yeah, okay, let's do it. Yeah, I'm sure at the
Well, I mean,
Royal Institute, if they're
yeah,
listening, yeah, we're coming.
when we host Impact in the fall, we should go on a field trip
Field trip to the Royal Institute of International Affairs. I can't think of anything more appropriate, quite frankly.
or ask them if they want to host Impact, and we can bring our board leadership participants there. That would be great. Make that
Okay.
happen. Make that happen.
Oh, okay. I'll make that happen, number one. Okay, no problem at all. But we're going off piece, Joe. We'll
I
talk
know.
about
Okay, you're right.
impact in
You're
a wee
right. Right.
while. But the confidentiality piece, I think, is
Well,
something that is plaguing
yes,
um, membership boards at the moment. I think
and
is a big issue.
I think everyone knows the intention of a board meeting to be confidential. I mean, when I do board orientations and board trainings and onboardings, the confidentiality of that role and the responsibility of confidentiality is quite clear.
Hmm.
Where things get gray is when I'm working in strategic planning context. And it's not an
Okay.
official board meeting, or
Uh-huh.
it may be a body of the board or a subset of the board and additional members. And so I make it clear this is not official board business. We are not taking minutes.
Hmm.
And then I utilize Chatham House as the conveyance of confidentiality, but that's
Okay.
not accurate.
Well, you have to say if well, yeah, it is if you tell them it's off minutes, then it is
Okay, but
accurate.
if you're
Off
but if
minutes.
it's not
Yeah.
a body that takes minutes, how can you be off minutes? If this is a strategic planning working group,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, everybody around that, I would argue, everybody around the table um, should appreciate their duty of confidentiality to the
correct.
organization. And that includes, I mean, gosh, like even what they argue as they may perceive as quite innocuous information could destabilize if it's not confirmed, if it's not
Absolutely.
finalized, if it's not published. So you're saying that are you saying that you're seeing people breaching confidentiality because they don't necessarily view it as such? Is that what you're thinking, or?
There's unfortunately more back channel conversations than I would like between the ideation phase and the final approval
Hmm.
phase. There are discussions around maybe the sunsetting of some very large pet projects that
Yeah.
then that gets around, even though that never comes to fruition.
Mm.
Boards and strategic planning steering committees or working groups or whatever you call that entity are and should be discussing the validity of everything in the organization and its importance to the future relevance of the association. And that may mean
Absolutely.
debate around closing a committee or doing away with a large event or selling off the magazine or whatever it may be. And that's moving that cheese is very likely going to upset some people. And when we discuss these things, myself and those involved have to be able to discuss it with confidentiality and know that these things aren't getting around.
Yeah.
Um, because
Absolutely.
you set the plan, you set the initiatives and these well-intentioned efforts to then be um, put under a spotlight or fought against unfairly. So yeah, I know I appreciate this because it can happen. I'm probably more worried about it happening than it does happen, but it's happened enough that I worry about it, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's fair enough, and I am seeing more and more recently an unwillingness to maintain confidentiality.
Yeah.
I think there's a blurring of I think sometimes I'm going to, be deeply cynical and say I think there is an intentional blurring of the lines by some
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
when they talk about, oh, we need to be transparent. Members need to know what we're talking about on their behalf.
Yeah.
And I think there is then a deliberate sort of leaking of information under the
Yeah.
pretense of transparency. Um, I think that's happened. That's not always, far from it. I think that's on occasion. And in fact, I've got a couple. I've been working with a couple of boards recently where that has been the case, and that's a far more fundamental governance issue.
Right, right. I'm thinking more of the gossipy element of it. People say,
Yeah,
"Oh, I
yeah.
didn't post anything or I didn't circulate that email, so I'm being confidential." But
But I'm
then they
having chats
will
about it. I'm
I'm
having
having chats
chats. Yeah.
about it.
Hmm.
I'm back channeling. I'm running some stuff past chairs or former officers or you know
Mm.
people who aren't members of the organization anymore. And I think it's that gossipy level that I don't think people appreciate how undermining it can truly be.
So when you start your strategy planning processes, and I'm asking because I'm thinking I'm doing some strategy planning this week, and I might need to apply this rule. Do you make it explicit that, actually, guys, look, whilst nothing here is maybe controversial, if we start sharing it broader than where we than this space, than this group, it may destabilize, or may undermine conversations. Do you make
Right.
that clear? Do you make
I
that
do,
clear to people?
absolutely, because
Uh-huh.
change in itself already faces headwinds. What we
Yes.
don't need is additional pressure or expectation or involvement from those who may or may not understand the totality of the conversation that's been had here. So, yes, I absolutely say this is not a board meeting. We are not on minute. We're not on minutes. But what we discuss here and the back and forth, not the end result, because the end result will absolutely be public, but how we get to it,
Yeah.
what's considered, why we consider it, the discussions of cost, risk, return,
Yeah. That whole
the
development process. Yeah.
right. The making of the sausage is going to be messy. It could be off-putting to many, and we only want them to see the beautiful end product.
I am loving so far. You've mentioned something about cheese, something about when people move the cheese, which is a
Yes.
new one on me. And now we're talking about the sausage factory that is
I'm
strategic
hungry. It's
planning.
it's Sunday morning. I'm
Yeah,
hungry. I have my
somebody needs to
breakfast.
eat.
So
Yeah.
yes, I
So,
absolutely do state that as part of the roles and ground rules of strategic planning, and it matters who the body
yes.
is.
Yeah.
If it is just the board, they should be more familiar with this
Yeah.
expectation, but it's still restated because this is an official board meeting. If it's beyond the board, it's guests of the board or a larger or different audience. I definitely orientate them to that expectation, and it's necessary, and it's even reminded of them or to them the next day. I just came from a group about a month or so ago, and some of the things that were discussed were pretty large
Yeah.
changes
Yeah.
and some pretty
Hmm.
major closures and discontinuations of committees and industry efforts that
Yeah.
we know not everyone is going to be happy about. But it's what's been deemed necessary for the organization's evolution and to refocus its
Hmm.
mission, its advancement of its mission. So
So why do people still leak? I mean, why are people still having? Why,
because
if you're
because
telling them, look, these are the
consensus
rules, why are they still leaking?
because not everyone I've found that there's more consensus in in person out loud than there really is behind the scenes. People say they're okay with something. People will vote for something while others are looking at them.
Oh, right. Okay. So that, right.
And it's behind the scenes, either before or after that request for approval or
Yeah.
consensus, that people admit or undermine the decision
S-
at hand.
So that then now is pointing far more. Now you're talking about boardroom culture. Now you talk or group culture, because
Yeah, groupthink.
actually, if I can't disagree, and and do so, constructively, then
People don't know how
there's
to,
no honesty in that space. There's no trust in that space.
yeah. And it's so funny. I think it's such a reflection. maybe on US culture or society at large, people have never disagreed more with each other, but they're not capable of doing it in an out loud, face to face,
Aye.
constructive arena. They do it behind each other's backs. They do it to their friend, they do it with people they know will agree with them, but not with those who may disagree.
Mm.
And so in person around these tables of governance, these tables of association leadership, they play nice. And then behind the scenes,
Yeah.
you
The
know
consequences, yeah.
the challenge demonstrates itself.
Yeah, the consequence of a lack of trust and honesty around the planning table, the whatever the discussion is, whatever the focus is, the consequence of that is then an undermining of confidentiality.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that, yeah, I think that is true. I think if we see any,
They don't know
leaking
how
of
to
any
debate.
of, yeah,
Yeah,
that
they don't
always
know how to
points to a
disagree.
much bigger cultural issue in that environment. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, yeah, you're right. We're just now so abused by keyboard warriors, and have been for such a long time.
Yeah,
And not just,
keyboard Karens. How's
yeah,
that?
there you go, Karens, there you go. That actually you're absolutely right. And then this links back to a session that we did when did we do that? Last November, about, cultures of constructive conflict.
Yeah, yeah,
And how actually, if you are seeing a lack of confidentiality around the boardroom table, that is actually a huge red flag about
yeah.
something far more fundamental, um, in your organization's culture. And that then is something that, to my mind, takes precedent over everything. That takes
Yeah.
precedent over everything. Then, not never mind your strategic priorities, because they mean nothing
Right.
if the culture in the organization is thus that whatever steps you take forward, you're taking twice as many backward because of
Yeah.
this lack of cohesion around the
And
around the board table.
as an executive staff member, it becomes this kind of dark web of discord. What
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
say, on minutes, what they say in front of each other is, oh
Mm.
yes, fine, whatever, sounds good. I support that. But then it's below the surface that the discord or distrust, or disagreement exists. And as a staff executive, that becomes very difficult to reconcile, to stay
To
in front of,
navigate that, yeah,
to
to
navigate.
navigate that is almost
Um,
impossible. It's impossible.
right. And
It's
in
impossible.
in strategic planning, I want very difficult decisions to be debated. I
Hmm.
want big, exciting changes or the commitment to doubling down on pre-existing things. I want these decisions to be vetted. I want it to be, a back and forth, and tell me what you think and why you think that. I'm bringing a great deal of information to the table that they have at their disposal. But if there's not the willingness to have sincere debate,
Yeah,
then what are we really achieving?
yeah. So actually,
So
the whole
yeah,
concept around the Chatham House piece is arguably completely irrelevant. Yeah.
it's not going to be my reference point anymore
No.
for confidentiality. I think what this will now become is a discussion around what constructive conflict looks like.
Yes.
And
Yes.
instead of framing this as a safe place, framing it as the place where discord can and should occur. And discord's not the right word, but where these discussions and deliberations should occur to ensure that the outputs are tested and appropriate for the organization.
So, do you think the cultural piece should be the focus of the work that we're doing with Impact in the autumn, in the fall?
I want to say yes, but my fear is if we couch it that way, what people think when they hear cultural piece or organizational culture, I don't think it conveys what we want it to convey.
Okay.
And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that the board members or even the staff executives who would participate in impact see it as an issue that can be tackled by one or two individuals, even if they're officers or even if they're board members.
Okay.
It's it's pervasive enough. How would we frame that as a positive outcome, improvement in culture, organizational culture as an output of, a
Yeah,
successful participation and impact? It's so much more
it's broader than that.
holistic. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Okay, well, that's
I don't know.
something to
Yeah.
reflect on. For the listeners who don't know what on earth we're talking about, Elisa and I are putting together a residential, a retreat, an executive
There you go.
retreat. That's the word, isn't it?
Yes.
In September 2025, we'll be launching. It's designed for senior, chief executives, senior executive directors, and their either the chairs of their board or their incoming,
Yeah.
presidents elect, etc. Spending so it's targeted, small cohorts to spend some time together to work out how to maximize the value and the impact of the governance function. And yes, absolutely, culture is as you say, well, it's an input and an output
Yeah.
of the governance function. So absolutely, we'll be focusing on that, and more details of that we'll be releasing more details of that in
Yeah.
the spring, and we'll start registrations. But yeah, I think it's so critical that to get everybody, all aspects of leadership around the table
Yeah.
to have those conversations.
Yeah, it's a leadership symposium,
Yeah,
and I'm excited to get one together. We'll start our focus on the UK market, and then take it to others. But what's interesting about a program like Impact is how much it will change year over year, given
yeah.
what the given what the participants bring to the table, how
Hmm.
the association landscape has changed or regressed or evolved. And so I'm excited to have these conversations that aren't pre-written, pre-scripted, but
Yeah.
that are based on the evolving and real-time needs of those executive leaders and their officers who are able to join.
And now I'm thinking, do we apply the Chatham House rule or not? Oh my God, we'll have to
Of
have
course we do. Of course we do.
a
Of course we do. But I think,
off minutes, Chatham House rules, off minutes, always.
well, I think, can we come up with a new house? Is there another house? What's your house? What do you call your house? What's your estate called?
Number 11. That's my house. The
Number
number
11
11
house,
rule, the 11th
number
rule, that's what
11
we'll
rule.
call it.
To me, that's where the next step is. It's not just who said what, it's what was discussed. And there has to be some better name for non-board, off-minute, total confidentiality around, again, the back and forth, not the output, not the end result, but the back and forth and the deliberation that led to, not just who said what. So what would that be called? What can we call that? Confidentiality?
Yeah, I think there's a word for it, looking up in the dictionary, called confidentiality. Yeah.
I know, but let's come up with something more fun.
Okay. Let's
Keyword.
I'll work on that one.
Okay.
When I'm editing the sound, the music, the intro music, I'll also be thinking about that as well. No problem.
Okay. That'd be great. I'd appreciate it. And work on your intro for next
Oh, the
podcast.
pressure's on. The pressure's on now. I'm gonna have to think of something really good.
And you've asked for it. You have to get your own. Do you still want me to do my exit? I mean, I have my sign off.
You do it. I use your sign off when you're not here, when you're not with me. On the rare
Oh,
occasions I've done it on my own.
oh,
I
good.
do your sign off, putting your
Okay.
members and your mission first.
Hey, hey. Oh, do you do the voice like
I do it like, no, I do it. No, I don't.
that? Good. Please never use that voice. All right. Well, you work on the intro. I'll keep up with the exit, the sign off, and I'm glad we had this conversation. I think this scratches the surface of a much larger issue, but I think tactically, as it relates to some of the kind of programming and meetings that we host with our
Yeah,
clients.
yeah,
And I think, even for an executive director, I think it's important to know the difference, and how to
absolutely.
set the table for healthy conversation,
Hmm.
and for an institution, whether it be a board or a committee or whatever, that can be trusted, as a place, and as a body of well-intentioned debate and
Yeah,
discussion. So
yeah,
thanks for
absolutely.
this. I appreciate it. You can go back to your Sunday now.
Well, thanks for that. No, I appreciate that. Like you said, you put up the bat signal. And I'm glad I was able to sort of be your counselor today.
Thank you. We'll see what kind of nightmares about nonprofit issues and challenges I have tonight. Be sure to bring that to you next time. And until then, put your members and your mission first.